Back in Christmas 2018, it seems like a century ago, I covered my first gaming Christmas gift, which was Grandstand's blue and yellow wonder handheld BMX Flyer. Well, now it's time for the follow-up. The Spectrum 48K's pack-in software pack, the Spectrum 6 pack. I should have got the thesaurus out before doing this video. I got my 48K in Christmas 1986, a good few years after its release. 1986 is, of course, when Amstrad's scrotal-faced overlord Sir Alan Sugar had wooed the brand into his stable of low-cost electronics, of course. And he was, of course, preparing to release the grey version of the Plus 2. To this end, I can only imagine that my hard-up mother had acquired the rubber-keyed variant, with the assistance of St Nicholas of Christmastown, of course, from a clearance sale in Dixon's or some such. I think I'd asked for a computer, particularly the Spectrum, after seeing a copy of Denton Design's Transformers game in Tunbridge Boots, and this twinned with my ever-growing interest in the arcade games of Hastings and the travelling fun fair. It made me jonesy for some more computer game action, and what better than Sir Clive's machine. It's about time that black and white telly in the spare room earned its keep, and it was no longer going to do that just by showing me Terry Wogan's talk show at 7 o'clock. It needed a slew of interactive adventures across the stars, across the world, and of course in terrible games in the dingy back streets of East End London. Many have talked about, of course, its dead flesh feeling rubber keys. I'm sorry, but how do you weirdos know what dead flesh feels like? Stop stroking corpses, especially if you're 10, you bunch of weirdos. Well, anyway, we're not here to discuss what the Spectrum keyboard feels like, dead flesh or no. We're here to talk about this. The cool collection, the bounteous bundle, the princely package, the lovely lot, the riveting raft, the kick-ass conglomeration that is the Sinclair 6-pack. Yes, I found the thesaurus, job's a good 'un. Distributed with both the 48K and the ZX Spectrum Plus, the ZX Spectrum 6-pack was probably the first thing most of the Spectrum-owning populace booted up upon their trusty little black machine. There were 3 versions of the 6-pack released. The one we will be discussing here today is the original, containing Maker Chip, Survival, Checkered Flag, Chess, Horoscope Skiing and Scrabble. The later version of the 6-pack for the Spectrum Plus swapped out Survival and Horace for the much less exciting for an 8-year-old Psion's VU3D graphic modelling software and Tasman Software's TasWord 2 word processor. Yuckety yuck. I would not have been happy to have had to sit there and type words out using that lousy word processor if I could have been getting run over by ambulances on my way to buy skis. I can tell you that much right now. The third version of the 6-pack was a completely different bundle of games altogether, and they were bundled with the first Spectrum hardware releases of the Amstrad era. It was called the Sinclair Soft 888 pack, and I've not played the likes of Disco Dan, Punchy or Oh Mummy, but I'm sure they're just as fun as they sound. Make of that what you will. I also found evidence of a version similar to the one I'm going to talk about today on eBay, which is the exact same pack as the 48K original, but it had the joystick murdering wank trainer Daley Thompson's Decathlon in the box, at the expense of Horace. But as I can't see much more written about it other than this on the internet, this one single lot, we can only surmise that the seller's sister snuck into the poor chap's room sometime in 1989 and recorded Bross's When Will I Be Famous off of Radio 1 over the digital misadventures of early video games' most visually appalling mascot. And the vendor here has just gone and jammed the hairy-lipped athlete's effort into the box in place of it. If I'm wrong, please bark a word of caution at me in the comments, preferably in the dull tone of a Doberman rather than the ear-piercing yap of a Yorkshire Terrier, please. Thanks. So then, let's look at the software in this pack, shall we, in order of personal preference, with the sprouts of the worst of this feast first, building up to the sausages wrapped in bacon of the best. There's a Christmas link. And no doubt the snottiest green on our plate here is Maker Chip by Incognito Software. Maker Chip is an educational piece of software. Of that, there is no doubt. It will take you by your tiny child hand and it will teach you the basics of circuits, how they work, and then lets you design your own and test them to see if they do work. If you're 8 years old, they probably won't. Yes, just what we all love to do as an 8-year-old. Test circuits. It's Spartan in its presentation, but it does what it does, and it presents its tuition in plain English. You cannot fault it for that. Yet this perfectly serviceable piece of early educational software still can't hold my attention for any longer than a McDonald's napkin rolling down the street in moderately windy conditions. It's not you, Maker Chip, it's me. Speaking of which, Scion and Microgen's chess. If I can't be paying attention to an old computer talking about circuits, then I'm buggered if I'm going to be letting that same computer hand me my arse on an ancient game that has more possible permutations than there are atoms in the universe. I'm sure chess is brilliant, but I have the attention span of a gnat. I mean, it does look brilliant. Yet my lips dry and my mind instantly wanders whenever anyone makes me even look at a chessboard. There are a metric butt-chocky load of chess games on the spectrum, of which this is one. I will give it this, though. I do love that box art. I'm a big fan of it. Look at him, look at that bishop there, staring up in wonder at the star-filled galaxy with his eyeless Elmo from Sesame Street head, whilst the knight piece there looks all stoic and miserable, like he's been informed that he's going to be doing dressage at the next Olympics. The rest of the paddock is going to laugh at you, you prancing buffoon. Take that in, and you don't even have any legs. How are you supposed to mince around in the Olympics, sir? Dressage is your destiny. Next up is Checkered Flag, a Formula 1 game by Scion. Again, in terms of its front end, it's pretty impressive. There's plenty of courses to select, both real and invented. A choice of 3 cars, which range from the slow but auto-geared and accessible McFaster Special to the legally distinct powerhouse that is the Ferretti Turbo. That's Ferretti. You can also decide if you want to do 1 lap or if you're feeling really brave. 99 of the beggars. It's a very basic game beyond its almost impressive for the time option and early presentation, however. From its sound to its aesthetics to its gameplay, it's all pretty bland. It is by no means the worst driving game on the system, as these reviews from the leading lights of the Spectrum reviewing press reveal, but there are significantly better racing titles out there for the ZX Spectrum. Still, it's not bad. Scrabble! And well, that sure looks like a Scrabble board to me. Well done, 48K Spectrum. You've got the right colour palette and the capabilities for a near perfect rendition of the classic board game for smarty pantses. Much better with multiple players rather than playing than the computer mind, as the temptation to take advantage of the computer's tiny 11,000 word lexicon and its trusting nature will never see you lose. Are you sure axolotl is a real word? Of course it's not. Oh, sorry mate. Oh look, it's Horace from Horace Goes Skiing. That's he. If Dizzy is Sonic, then Horace is Spectrum's Alex Kidd, the early contender in a much less pleasing series of games, but we love him anyway. Developed for Scion by Melbourne House, this makes me even more worried about going to Australia, never mind all the things that are trying to kill you with many legs and fins. If this is what they think people look like, then I'm not going to go there. Horace Goes Skiing is as definitively a 1982 Spectrum game as you can get, starting with the soulless wretch galloping across a motorway to purchase skis and then back again. Horace seems to respond well to his controls, even if the little perisher refuses to stop still for even a second. It's Frogger then, and a competent but unspectacular clone at that. Each collision with the traffic sees him Dr. Tenor in hospital fees, including the ambulances themselves. Fleecing bastards. Protect the NHS, kids. Otherwise, this is our grim future. This depravity is our future. If you spend all your money on skis and trips to the A&E to remove your spine from your kidneys, then the ski slope will refuse your remittance, because game over conditions in this game seem to be that you can't do your favoured hobby today, rather than your head has been crushed underneath the wheels of an articulated lorry. And I think there's a lesson we can all learn from that, but I'm not sure what it is. I'll get back to you if I do ever figure it out. I won't figure it out, but well done anyway, Horace Goes Skiing. Thanks for trying. If you do have the right amount of cash, then lucky you. It's time for a bit of proto ski free as you slalom between flags in an attempt to get to the finish line without your skis splintering. This will happen if Horace and the rough bark of a conifer have an ungodly entanglement. Horace will make you only too aware of his displeasure at his face being rammed into the side of a tree. So yes, Horace Goes Skiing is jolly good fun indeed. It's simple fun, but it is very good fun all the same. I like Horace. He gets a thumbs up from me. He doesn't have any thumbs. He can't give me a thumbs up. Is that an arm on the back of his head or a ponytail? God, he's awful, isn't he? Look at him. Slightly more complex, and my favourite on the pack, is Macmillan Education's Science Horizon Survival. God, that's a mouthful. It is an educational title where you play on your favourite hierarchical plateau of the food chain. From the derpy lion to a lowly insect, this is a game where you must eat, drink and avoid ending up on a dinner plate across numerous terrains. Survival, and let's just call it that, it's a lot easier, was developed by 5-Way Software, and the Science Horizon series were educational titles aimed at 5 to 12-year-olds, and they were instigated after a meeting between Sir Clive Sinclair and former Prime Minister Harold Macmillan, which is where Macmillan Education Software comes from. The aim that they had for this game was to teach children about food chains, with insects typically having a short life, whereas the hawk only really needs to worry about not getting enough mouse and robin pie, or a stickman dressed as a hunter from carrying up the jungle, putting its bullet right up his bumhole. Now let's get this out of the way first. Visually, Survival is absolute dreck, possibly the most half-assed commercial effort in the computer's history. The many creatures and fauna on the playfield are simple keyboard characters and are represented on the close vicinity view at the side of the screen by these simple line drawings. It looks as rough as a badger's carcass. But once you start moving your little avatar about the gridded world, it soon becomes really quite addictive. As a robin, do you stay in the green forest away from the hawks? And if you do, won't you die of thirst? As the lion, many men are constantly on your tail because they're jealous of your magnificent 80s hair metal haircut, and all you want to do is rip the sinew off of a barcode horse's ribcage. But there they are, man being a complete cunt once again. As a hawk, let's call him Chesney, yes, it's tempting to swoop down on that mouse, but that hunter with a shotgun is but a few steps away. If you can get used to its slack artwork and its control scheme, you'll be constantly attempting to stretch the lifespan of your housefly charge to an extra 3 hours in its pathetic turd dancing life. Science Horizon Survival is by accidental design a really fun to play title, to me at least. And before I go, let's make a quick mention of the 7th tape in the box, in the 48K box that is, the famous Horizon cassette. The rarely ever loaded, always beguiling first step guide to learning the functionality of your new microchip field acquisition and its many keys and their alternative uses. But no one ever loaded it up. And I'm not mentioning it because of the weird graph that shows you about the population growths of rabbits and foxes, or that program that shows you the spectrum sorting playing cards. No, I didn't even bother loading them up. I saw the words through the wall and I just flipped it over to side B and I just played that. The Aldi own brand Batty. The Happy Shopper Breakout. The Poundland Arkanoid. It's terrible, but back in 1986 it was the game I played the most out of all of this lovely free selection of software. To think, in Tokyo at the same time as me, 9-year-old Hideo or Shinji was playing Super Mario Bros. On his Famicom, while I was happy as Larry with a 16K bat and ball game with extremely questionable physics. What an idiot 9-year-old me was. Picking the 7th bit of software in a 6-game pack. And I guess that's it for this loose Spectrum Christmas trilogy. Check out the Shaky the Game and the Snowman reviews, which were the other parts of the trilogy, and maybe I will release another video before Father Christmas shoots down our collective flues and flops his sack about before depositing all his goodies all over our living room carpets. That innuendo is for you, Dougie Titchmarsh. Anyway, Kay, thanks and bye. And Merry Christmas if I don't do a video, I guess.